Is Scandinavia seeing a renaissance in conservative thought? It certainly looked that way to me when I recently spoke at a pan-Scandinavian conference in Finland. The conference was called Nostos, after the Greek for homecoming. We also recently saw here in London the National Conservatism Conference. So is there a renaissance happening across the Western world? How woke exactly is Scandinavia? And if there is a viable conservative renaissance afoot in the Nordic nations, how would that impact on post-Brexit Britain? Joining me to discuss this is a guest who will certainly have many views on these questions, the former Prime Minister of Iceland, Sigmundur Gunnlaugsson, who also spoke at the Nostos conference. It's very good to see you again. Thank you so much for being willing to join us tonight. So let me start by asking you if you can tell us a bit about the political situation currently in Scandinavia from where you stand.
Yes, but first of all, I'd like to congratulate you on working for the UK's favourite news brand. You've been doing a great job with your reporting. And you mentioned the Nostos conference and the discussions we had there regarding a possible renaissance, regarding, I would say, common sense views, not particularly in every case conservative views, but common sense views. However, I worry that we are still in trouble, that things could still go quite badly as they have been developing, including in my own country of Iceland. Because the Nordic countries see themselves as a guiding light. They want to be better than others. They want to show the way. They want to lead the way towards modernity and a better world. So they have been competing for being the best at being good, being the good people of Europe and, well, the world, in fact. And this has resulted in laws often being made, bills presented, with the stated aim of getting higher on some lists that are held out by activists, rainbow lists and other things like that. So in my country, for example, the government has repeatedly put forth bills with a stated goal of making us better than others. And this has led to some pretty disastrous decisions. But things are starting to change in some of the countries, I'd say particularly in Denmark, where the Social Democrats have decided to change their approach regarding, for example, illegal immigration. And this was a big change for them. And it resulted in a lot of criticism, including from the Icelandic Social Democrats. But they had come to the conclusion that you can't put together a welfare state and open borders. You can have one or the other, but you can't have both. And this has been quite a successful policy change for them, because they had gone so far in the other direction that in the end, they hit the wall of reality. So the situation now in 2023 is that Iceland has been getting more asylum seekers than Denmark. And there are around 20 times more Danes than there are Icelanders. So this just goes to show that once politicians decide that they need to change things, you can really change them, but you have to be able to follow through. And we are not following through on anything, unfortunately, in Iceland these days. But we see examples, as in the Danish case.
So how are the people, on normal people in Scandinavian countries, in Iceland, responding to this? Like, if there is a common sense renaissance, what kind of impact could that potentially have on a post-Brexit Britain, given the sort of historical close relationship that we have with the Nordic nations?
Hopefully, if this possible renaissance continues in the Nordic countries, it could have a considerable effect in the UK. because all the Nordic countries love the UK. We are Anglophiles or Britophiles. We love your history, your culture, and everything about the UK. So we want to be your friends more than anything. And we want to have a very close relationship with the UK, even though we have had our problems with the UK, with recovers and things like that. But still, we want a close relationship. So if these countries that have seen themselves as the guiding lights of modernity and progress become the first to figure out that, well, in the end, reality starts to bite, starts to have an influence, and you have to adapt to reality. Hopefully that can be an example to the UK. The English-speaking countries have been leading in the much of the woke nonsense. And as I mentioned earlier, we in Scandinavia, or the Nordic countries, we wanted to follow that example because we see ourselves as the countries that lead the way in progress. But then I think things went too far, like in Denmark and Sweden. And all of a sudden they faced reality. Some countries, Denmark, Norway to some extent, Finland perhaps have adopted to that reality, and Sweden is maybe starting to do so now. But here in Iceland, we seem to be unable to learn from the mistakes of others. So speaking of, for example, the immigration crisis, last year we had record population growth in Iceland. But for each new Icelandic citizen, over 15 foreign citizens were added to the population. So no country can sustain this for long. We're a very small country, so things happen fast here. But I think my sense is that even here, people are starting to wake up and realize that we have to maintain some sort of control and consider reality along with the desire to be higher on some lists.